All right, Accounting 1, welcome to Chapter 6, where we will start out with our work together. We are getting ready to begin our end of period work, so getting ready to prepare for the next fiscal period. We have a two-step problem today. We will be preparing a heading and then also recording our trial balance. So step 1 says on April 30th of the current year, Fix It Now is ready to prepare their worksheet. The business uses a monthly fiscal period. The first step in preparing a worksheet is to do the heading. We want to fill in the blanks for each row of the worksheet. Heading for Fix It Now for April 30th of the current year. We enter the current year as 20 and we do not need to abbreviate the month. So remember that a heading goes at the top of every financial statement. And so what we start off with in row 1 is the name of the business. Row 2 is what type of a financial statement it is. And then the third row is the date. So row 1 will be the name of the company, which is Fix It Now. Row 2 is the name of the financial statement, and this is just the worksheet. And then row 3 is the date. Now we cannot just put April 30th because technically this worksheet shows for the for month ended April 30th, 20 dash dash. So the reason we put for month ended is because eventually in chapter 7 we're going to talk about a specific worksheet that shows just on a day. And so if we just put the date, what that signifies to our readers is that this information was only good on April 30th. When we say for month ended, what that means is that this information happened over the course of an entire month. So that's the reason we put for month ended instead of just doing the date. So let's click on our next step and head over to part 2 where we're going to record the trial balance. Now I want to point out a couple of things. We have a question and asset tab over here, and I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to pull it right here for a second. The thing that I'm not a big fan of how Applia and MindTap does this is that this information here is what we need to complete our worksheet. However, does anyone know where this information actually came from? If you said your general ledger, I would give you 100 extra credit points right now because I would be so proud of the fact that you knew where that came from. If no one said it, that's okay, but you need to know where that is now. So this information technically comes from our general ledger. Now, we haven't worked with our general ledger since chapter 4. It's been a little bit of time. Remember, your general ledger is where we post to. It's where we have each account with up-to-date balances. The reason that you need to know that is you will eventually do a reinforcement problem that starts at the end of chapter 4 and then has you do all the end of period work. So you will need to know that information. And so, as I was saying, actually I'm going to tab that back up here real quick. Here is our worksheet. It looks virtually the same as it would in your workbook problem, except like before, you don't have the little lines for each digits. Obviously, they put the heading in for you on your worksheet. You would need to do that for your workbook. And then notice that over here, you have all of your accounts. Now, we list all of our accounts, whether or not they have balances in them. And so today, all we're actually doing is our first 2 columns, which is our trial balance. The whole point of doing a trial balance before we get started is we want to make sure our debits and credits are equal now. Because before we get going and do all this other information over here, remember that the crux of accounting is to make sure that your debits equal your credits. And if they don't, obviously you have an error and you would need to go fix that. So really, today is pretty simple in and of the fact that all you're doing is putting the information that is found in our question assets into our trial balance. So cash has a balance of $4,900 and that's a debit. So we put in $4,900. Petty cash has a debit balance of $75. Accounts receivable has a debit balance of $1,387. Supplies has a debit balance of $228. Prepaid insurance, $375 debit. Accounts payable, $267. The capital account has 7,443. That's a credit. The drawing account has 1,700. Now, here's our first one, income summary. We have not learned about income summary yet. You won't actually learn about that until chapter 8. But income summary is a special account. It currently doesn't have a balance. However, we list it on our trial balance always. We list all accounts whether or not they have balances. Okay? So then we jump onto sales. Sales has a credit balance of $2,160. Advertising has a debit balance of $460. Cash short and over 6. You will see here that insurance expense does not have a balance right now. That's okay. We just jump on down to miscellaneous, $189 debit. And then same thing with supplies, there's nothing, we leave that blank. Utilities expense has $550. So like I said, it's a pretty easy day today in and of the fact that all you're doing is copying this information down. Now, as I said before, you have to know where this information is coming from, because as easy as Applia and MindTap make it, they just put it right up there for you. You need to know that that information actually is coming from your general ledger, okay? Now, the last thing that we need to do is we need to total our trial balance columns to make sure that our debits equal our credits. So you do need to get your handy dandy calculator out unless, like I said, you're very good at mental math. So we're totaling all of our debit columns. When we do that, we get a grand total of $9,870. And when we total up our 3 credits, we also get a total of $9,870. So since our debits equal our credits, we're now ready to go on to the next part in our completing our worksheet, okay? Which actually we're not going to do until tomorrow. That's 6-2. So this is actually the end of our 6-1 work together. So go ahead, you can go on over and do on your own, your application, and then don't forget about your terms and questions as well.